Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Making Lean Fly podcast. Today we've got another great subject. This is the role of the team leader and group leader, and I've got four fantastic guests. Edwin Berg, our piece of furniture that we keep in the podcast on a pretty regular basis. Rob Bullock, site director from Western Approach. Gary Shurmer, one of our lean experts, and Adam Nicklin, who now heads up our enterprise excellence part of our lean COE. And the abstract for this, which you'll have seen hopefully on the heading for the podcast, is that the team leader and group leader roles are two of the most important leadership roles in an organization. They're directly impacting and influencing the majority of a company's staff. It's therefore critical that they're the right person for the role and that they're supported to be successful in that role. So what does that look like in reality? What does an organization need to do to ensure that it recruits and selects, inducts, trains and supports its team leaders and group leaders excellently? So in this episode, I'm going to talk to my four guests about their personal experiences, including Rob as one of our site directors who's actually done this and experienced recruiting and developing team leaders and group leaders. And then my other guests have all had different experiences and observed and had different influences from what we've been doing. So I'm really excited to get into this. So I'm going to start, as I always do, by asking our guests to introduce themselves. So let's start perhaps with you, Edwin, as our furniture, our regular guest. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me again, Philip. And it's not always that I'm being referred to as furniture, but somehow it feels good to be on this cast more often than a few times. Thanks. So I'm Edwin Berg. I work with GKN Aerospace a little over 3 years now. I lead our Lean Academy, which holds the body of knowledge for everything we do in continuous improvement and lean, and also a group of great professionals that I work with in the Six Sigma realm. That's my day to day.
Great, thank you, Edwin. And Adam, welcome, first time on the show.
Yeah, pleased to be here. Thank you, Philip. Hi everyone, Adam Nicklin here. I've been around GKN actually since 2007, but I've been in GKN Aerospace just over 3 years now. I am responsible for Enterprise Excellence now, which is a newly formed part of our Lean Centre of Excellence as we look to go more horizontally and more vertically with our organisation in terms of our lean deployment to make sure we're just a brilliantly, fantastically connected organisation.
Excellent, Adam. I wouldn't try and say that after a drink or two. And Gary, welcome. Relative newcomer to GKN Aerospace, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much, Philip. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, my name's Gary Shurmer, so I'm relatively new to GKN, as Philip said. So I've been in the business for just a little over 3 months. I might even be touching 3.5. So I might even try and stretch it out there. So I'm a lean expert, and I'm supporting currently Filton and Western Approach on their lean journey, and hopefully getting them really embedded into the lean operating model, and obviously supporting them with their difficulties that they'll have over the coming 24 months or so.
Great, thank you very much, Gary. Loads of opportunity there. And then Rob, last but not least, site director from Western Approach. Welcome.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, thanks for the invite. Great to be here. So Rob Bullock, I'm the site director here at Western Approach. Been with GKN for a little under 10 years. Background is in operations mainly. Started in lean way back when. So a lot of exposure with lean and really passionate about the subject. So keen to express some views on the topic matter here at hand.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much, Rob. And it's a pleasure to have you on. So we've done the introduction. So let's get into, what is the role of the team leader and group leader. So Rob, how would you describe briefly to somebody who asks you what is the role of a team leader?
I think for me, Philip, if we talk about GKN and our kind of strap line of becoming a great place to work, I think the role of the team leader and group leader really is all about that for me. It starts with them. They're the building blocks. If we start with those guys and they drive this great place to work, then I think that, what we can achieve is truly remarkable. So I think for me, it's, forget the daily accountabilities of PSQ, DCC, etc. I think for me, it's just all about that, people and development, all that side of things. I think that's a real strong point in it for me.
Great. I love that, Rob, as well, the way that you've not kind of gone into, let's give some technical bullet points of the job description. You know, what's the essence? Why do we have team leaders and group leaders? And I think
I'm a simple Welshman, Philip.
Absolutely. No, it's great. Thank you, Rob. And Gary, you bring a little bit of outside in thinking about team leaders and group leaders. You know, maybe just building on what Rob said, how would you see the role of the team leader and group leader?
So based on my experience, I mean, obviously the most important company that I worked in was Toyota, which kind of hold team leaders and group leaders in very high esteem. And as you said at the beginning of the podcast, you know, these guys and girls, they do control the majority of the people, and the drive within them is you know, production is king. You know, the team leaders really keep the production lines running, and the group leaders support the team leaders to keep the production line running. And fundamentally, without the team leaders and group leaders in Toyota as a company, it would not produce the vehicles that it does to the volume that it produces and to the quality that it produces, because they are massively important. You know, they have a framework, you know, as a role to work within, but they have freedom within that framework to do what they need to do at the right times. And I think if we can get, you know, that kind of mindset in and allow these girls and guys to do their jobs, I think the rewards will be absolutely tremendous. You know, massively important role for me. And I've always said it, you know, in any training that I've done, you know, team leaders particularly, it's one of the most underrated, but most important jobs that people can do.
Yeah, that's great. I love the way you've described that, Gary. And if I think about that, you know, I mean, most companies and previously in GKN times, you know, we've had roles such as supervisors, leading hands, value stream managers, etc. You know, Adam, what's your observation of the difference between those kind of job descriptions and what we're trying to build with the team leaders and group leaders?
Well, I think it's actually a paradigm shift from having the best people for, you know, they've always been around, they're the best operators, but are they, you know, geared up to provide opportunities for team members to play to their strengths and be successful? And I think we're in a situation now where that's more important than ever, starting with safety first. And how can we bring out the talents and strengths of our team? You know, one of the big parts that we've recognized needed to change through our deployment was simple things like span of control. You know, in some cases, 50 direct reports, you know, you can't do anything more than survive. So, and you certainly can't provide opportunities for team members to play to their strengths. So I think we've, you know, using the best practices that, you know, Rob and Gary have spoken about, we've tried really hard to integrate that really well. And as far as I can see, where it's been done really well, we've seen the benefit so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Adam. I think that's and you talked about talent, and I'm interested, Edwin. You know, I mean, what would you see as the difference between talent, experience, skill, and what's the kind of mix that you need?
I think there is a very fundamental difference between skills and experience and talent as a concept. Because experience, you can go and gain, you can go and practice things and you'll gain your experience. Skills you can go and practice or be taught. But if you talk about talent, it's something that's inherent to the person that you are. And it is something that cannot be taught. It is what you bring as a personal quality to your work. So when you take a look at team leaders and group leaders, there's a number of items that you need to have as talent before you can be successful in the role. And then when you have those leadership talents, that interaction talent with people, that connectivity, the way that you drive engagement, when you bring that all to work, then you'll learn extremely fast the skills and the experience required. And of course, as a team leader, you need to have skills for the work. You need to have skills around teaching and giving job instruction. But to me, the most significant thing that you need to bring when you come to a team leader role is talent that's fit for that role.
So fit for that role. So we're talking here, I guess, about making sure we've got the right person to fit the role. Not saying, you know, somebody's good or bad, but saying, are they the right person for that particular role? They might be the wrong person for that particular role, but the right person for a different role. I guess that's kind of where we're coming from. And Rob, what are you observing in, you know, the real world that you're doing this in Western Approach?
Yeah, I think very much that, Philip. You know, everybody's got their place in the world, and certain people will be naturally gifted at certain things and naturally not at others. So I think it's just about finding that right place for those individuals within the business. And if it's as a team leader or a group leader, then great. If it's not, then we help them find the right place for them within the organization. We've had an instance recently at Western Approach where an individual put his hand up and said that the team leader role actually wasn't for him. So we've helped him find his natural place, then actually a level down as a primary operator, which he fits into very well. He's a natural trainer. So it works both ways, up and down the scale. So I think, yeah, we've seen lots of different things at Western Approach so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really great outcome as well, isn't it? I mean, obviously the best outcome is that the person in the job thrives in it, does a great job and enjoys it. But if they're not enjoying it, if it's not fit for them, the second best outcome is that we then find an opportunity for them somewhere they can come in every day and think, hey, I can do a great job. And there's nothing worse than somebody being stressed because they're not in the right role. I mean, that's not good for anybody, is it? So, I mean, I'm interested, Gary, how have you seen this? Again, I'm looking for this outside in view. You know, I mean, you know, if you think about Toyota, how do they make sure they've got the right people in those team leaders and group leader roles?
That's a good question. They have a journey path. So there's a clear journey path when you join Toyota as a team member, and to get to a team leader role, you have to go through, or you have to have your yearly appraisals that have to be over and above the normal standard minimum 3. So you have to be a 4 or a 5. You have to do that for a minimum of 4 years. And what you find is those that are the 4s and 5s, it's because they want to do that role. And then there's the natural selection. Then after, I think it's probably about 4.5 years, there's a determination whether 1, do they want it, and 2, do we actually see that they are a team leader material? And this is kind of done through the yearly appraisals. So the conversations are always taking place in where do you want to be in 12 months' time? Where do you want to be in 2 years' time? And if the conversation is they want to be a team leader, then the direction is from the group leader is how do I develop them to be a team leader? So they're already pre-selected through their own ambition, and then they are kind of then built up to their selection for the team leader program after 4 years. So that's kind of how Toyota do it, and then they do exactly the same when you go from team leader to group leader. You have a 4-year path to become a group leader, and again, you've got to have the desire to want to do it, so they'll understand what the role really entails. The group leader can work with them and make a determination whether, yes, you're going to fit this role or whether you're not going to fit it, because there is a fine line between whether you can be a good group leader or whether you can't, and you have to have that kind of separation from the team members and the team leaders. And someone once described to me, it's a bit like a spark plug, and you've got to have that perfect gap between you and them. And sometimes team leaders can be a bit close, so that gap can be a bit too close. And obviously, the spark plug doesn't work. And then equally, they can be too far away from them, and it doesn't work. So it's got to be perfect. But you kind of spend 3 years with them, building them up to that and making that determination whether they'll make a good group leader or a team leader or whether they won't. And they're informed about this all the way through. Every 6 months when you're having the reviews, they are literally, are you on the right path or you're not on the right path? And sometimes they'll just say, it isn't for me, just like, the gentleman from Western Approach. But that determination would be made absolutely prior to them being put on a course.
So it sounds like there's more to it than just are they good at the job that they're in. They are actually assessing them for the, let's call them the softer skills that they need for the
absolutely role. It's about attitude. It's about how much they put themselves out, and they're assessed on really their drive, because you've got to be massively driven to become a team leader or a group leader in that environment, and you can get found out very, very quickly. So the selection criteria is as such. It's a two-way conversation. The expectation is set from day one, and the build program to get them to where you need to be takes about 3 years.
Okay. It very much sounds like we need something similar in England football's team, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's just the remnants of Saturday still floating around in my mind. But let's so we've talked quite a bit about the subject of this. We always have an element in the podcast where we try and find fun facts about the guests. So Edwin, I think, has been on the hook a few times already, so I'm not going to ask him to do that again. But Adam, what's a fun fact? What might people not know about you?
Oh, I've got two actually. All right. So the first one is I share a birthday with John Wayne, but I'm definitely not a cowboy. So that's the first thing. The second one is I'm actually pretty stupid because in December, despite the fact that it's a busy time of the year anyway, today my youngest daughter is 13. Tomorrow my eldest daughter is 15. And on the 23rd of December is my wedding anniversary. So quite frankly, I'm an idiot. But those are the two things that come to mind.
Yeah, you're a very poor idiot as well, aren't you?
Well, that's true. But others might say I do exactly what I'm told as well. So, swings and roundabouts.
Absolutely. You're definitely not good at maths. Not when it comes to the addition of 9. No, excellent. All right, thanks. What about yourself, Rob? What can you tell us that we might not know about you?
I'll stick to one. I think I'll be greedy and have 2. But I think so. As a passionate Welshman, you may not know that I am a qualified WRU coach. So my son, who's 12, plays, is very passionate about the sport. Got a very good rugby brain on him. Nothing like his dad. But yeah, I've coached for about 6 years now. So since Ethan started playing, I've been coaching for 6 years and I'm qualified. So yeah. It's my passionate side of GKN.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, the way you're helping, young minds and bodies to build themselves, and that camaraderie of being in a team and playing a team sport. I mean, that's fantastic, Rob. So it's a great thing that you do there. And the worst thing about it though is I can't think of something to make fun of. So I'll just have to leave you with. That's great.
I was going to start when you said the England World Cup.
What about cauliflower ears, Rob? Any cauliflower ears, Rob?
Well, they're actually quite good. You're all right.
Obviously used a lot of tape. Gary, what about yourself?
Maybe not so much fun facts, but a couple of things. I actually did. I went to a space shuttle launch in the early 90s, and then in 2009. So I watched the shuttle going up, and then in 2009, I watched the plane come down into the Hudson. Obviously, the inspiration for the film Sully, and watched all of the aftermath of that and the reaction speed of the rescue services, which was quite mind-boggling, if the truth be told. To have somewhere in the region of about 100 vehicles coming across New York through traffic in about 10 minutes flat was just absolutely awesome. And then obviously, fortunately, nobody lost their lives, which was even more amazing when you consider what had happened. So
yeah, absolutely. That's an incredible story, and I'm sure most people who are listening have watched the film or read the book, but if they haven't, then they absolutely should do, because it's an incredible story. Absolutely. Right. All right. Thank you. That's always good to get to know you all a little better. So thanks for that. So if we jump back to the subject though, I still want to kind of get into this right person for the role question. So Edwin, how would you describe the right person for let's stick to just the team leader initially, the team leader role?
I think the right person for the team leader role is a person that connects with their team and is able to build a safe environment. Safe environment for 2 reasons. One obviously is physical safety. There's no excuse. It has to be safe before we begin talking about what is it that we're going to produce today. But I think even more important, as important, because nothing can be more important than physical safety, but as important is a safe environment where it's okay to call out problems. If you're a team leader, I think one of the key things that you need to bring is problem-solving skills and an ability to connect with people in such a way that if anything goes off standard, anything goes wrong, there's this real quick one-on-one interaction saying, all right, what is going on? What do we need to do to solve this problem? What's been causing it? Is it a big issue, or can we still produce? And if not, what do we do to contain issues going further? The idea is that they build that environment of safety where people are open and honest, they feel respected, they feel cared for, and they feel that as a team, we're all there for the same reason, and that is to be successfully delivering the right quality to our next down the line step or to the customer.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that description. So kind of if we look about, what we've talked about getting the right person for the role, and you've talked about, your view, Edwin, of what the characteristics are of someone. And I love that focus on, what I'd probably describe as physical and psychological safety of the team members. How do we select our team leaders and group leaders? And Rob, maybe you're the right person to direct this question to. In GKN Aerospace, how are we doing that? How are we selecting, how are we inducting, training and supporting our team leaders and group leaders?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got quite a, well, I would say unique, because I know no different, Philip, at the moment, but I think unique process in the fact that we don't just rely on the usual interview process. So we've partnered up with Gallup, who are well, they've got an abundance of data, let's put it that way, in terms of the knowledge that they have in terms of the marketplace and the requirements for these type of roles. So they hold this vast database of information on the requirements and what makes a good leader, group leader, et cetera, et cetera. So we've partnered up with those guys, and ahead of going for the role, these guys will apply, the candidates will apply and do an online web assessment, which really then starts to give us, some of those attributes that the guys have talked about, where their strengths are, where the development areas are. And we can kind of benchmark that then against what Gallup would say makes a good leader, whether it's a team leader or a group leader. And then we get a kind of feel for these individuals before they even come into the interview room. We know whether they're hitting that benchmark or not. So we then combine the interview. So we combine the web assessment with a face-to-face interview, and that's usually a panel. So 3 or 4 individuals. So we get a good cross-functional representation there of the business. Use the information contained within the web assessment to develop interview questions as well. So again, it's all interconnected. And in the case of an internal candidate as well, they would get what we would call a proxy survey. So the existing manager and previous managers would complete a survey of that individual, again, kind of guidance as to the whys and the wherefores of how they perform. And it's really those 3 things, they're the 3 key elements that we take then to kind of form a rounded view of that individual and whether they'll be a good fit with the team at Western Approach, for example. And then we make the decision based on that. It works very, very well for us. We've got some really, really good team leaders. We've had 2 team leaders as an example. We talked earlier on about the guy that's put his hand up and taken a backward step, but actually we've had 2 team leaders that have been promoted to group leader level within a space of 18 months. So it does work. It does identify really, really good talent. We also build on that then within Western Approach. And myself and the HR manager do a monthly forum with the team leader and group leaders. So that's an opportunity for those guys just to kind of get together for an hour once a month, talk about what's working in the role for them, what doesn't work so well, and then they relay that then to myself and the HR manager, and we kind of give some feedback, take actions away, and help build on it from there. And another thing then, just to finish off, we insist that they do Lean Foundation and Lean Advanced within the first 6 months of being in the role. So it's given them that building block to go on and do great things, hopefully, for the company.
Brilliant. And as I understand it, you also build their individual development plans around the strengths profile as well to help them build on those strengths.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So each leader then, when they're appointed into the role, as part of the web assessment that we do with Gallup, we take that information and we develop individual development plans, IDPs for each leader, which again, we write the sort of broad brush areas of focus and areas of development for them. They take that away and actually write their own objectives to help develop those areas then. So it's not just us kind of spoon feeding. They've got a bit of work to do as well. Again, that just puts that bit of accountability, that bit of responsibility back in their lap. That if they really want the job, if they really want to develop, it's a 2-way street.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great description of how you've been doing it there, Rob. And I think it's interesting, Gary, if you kind of contrast that to Toyota. You've got Toyota who've been doing this for decades, basically, with that structure. They've got, let's say, well, they've earned it. They didn't get given it, but they've earned now the opportunity to be able to, I guess, take a very steady process to make sure that they've got that 2-3 years of, profile of the person, performance of the person before they make the decision on them stepping up. Whereas we've had to do it in a much more accelerated way because we've started from zero basically and had to build the team leaders and group leaders. So as again, somebody new into the organization who's seen that kind of well-established route versus what we're doing here, what observations do you have?
Obviously my observations are still quite limited, to be fair, Philip. What I would say is, in terms of observations is, team leaders in Toyota, as an example, they are solely focused on people and process. And wherever their process areas are, they will always be there. And I think maybe, perhaps one of my observations is I don't know who a team leader is. And it's very clear within that organisation who is who. So therefore, it's very easy to approach the right person if because you know they'll be there and you know who they are. And again, I know it goes a little bit away from the question, but that's probably my observation. As I walk around, this site in Filton where I am currently, and equally in Western Approach, I can't differentiate who the people are. Therefore, it's very difficult for me to say, well, who's a team leader, who's a group leader. I can see who an operator is because they're generally doing something, but there again, that could be a team leader or it could be a group leader. So I think I think there's something that maybe could be grasped in that is, we don't need to have a big flag that says I'm a team leader, but we should be able to differentiate who is the leadership and who are the operators, and who is leading these operators in a specific area. And one of the and absolutely one of the key things and one of the key attributes, and I was listening intently to Edwin, and he was absolutely 100% right. And I think one thing that we perhaps could add into that, is a team leader has got to want to be able to lead people, and he's got to want to be able to get product through the door and get it through the door safely, first and foremost, but to the right quality, and react incredibly fast. Now, one can argue that Toyota is a more fast environment than we work in within aerospace, but time is still equally as important. So problems arise, they need to be fixed, and they need to be fixed there and then. And if they can't be fixed there and then, there's the structure that we've got with the daily management boards that allows the escalation to fix that. But it is the real quick fixes that really need helping with. So I'm hoping, obviously, during my journey with GCAN and working with Rob and the site directors here at Filton, that we can kind of get that element of structuring that actually directs the team leader in what they do and how they do it and how quickly they do it. So
brilliant. I think that's fantastic, Gary. And I think again, what you've established there is, our journey to maturing these roles, right? And I think it's great observations. And again, one of the great things of having somebody come with that outside in view is that we can get the mirror held up and say, okay, we've done so much. What do we need to do next? So that's fantastic feedback. Thank you, Gary. And I guess that links, to the next question I have, which is, what are the benefits to the business of having those people properly in place? If you have, let's say, a traditional supervisor, leading hand type of business setup versus having these roles, these team leaders and group leaders in place, what are the impact that we would expect to see and the benefits to the business? And maybe Edwin, you can have a go at that one.
I'll start off with the really obvious ones, which is if you have really good team leaders, most of your problems are going to be solved by the team and the team leader together. There's going to be a lot less escalations because you've worked together to really formulate problem statements well. You're acting really fast, and it becomes a habit to act when problems are still small. And that means that your production flow is going to be less hampered than it is right now. So that's one. But maybe equally important is the other one, which is all people directed. If you have really good team leaders in place, they're going to develop the people around them. they're going to be able to spot those people that have certain talents that can benefit the business now and in the future. So competency development, leadership development is also gonna grow if you put this structure in place correctly, and has a lot to do also with span of control that Adam touched upon. If you have 10 to 12 people that you work intensely with every day, you're going to know them. You're going to know them really well. You're going to be able to support them really well. And that benefits the future as much as it does benefit the day-to-day business. So I think those two things are extremely clearly visible. If you have that structure in place, the flow of operation as well as the people development are going to thrive.
Excellent. I love that, Edwin. I think that's a great explanation. So I'm going to turn the question round now. So those are the benefits to the business, but if I listen to how Gary described it, it sounds like these are pretty tough jobs, right? There's a lot of expectation. They're very demanding roles. So what's the benefit to the individual? Adam, what's your view on that?
Well, I think it has to go back to, if we go to the start, we want 98% of problems to be solved at the team level, and that means it's a more difficult job than perhaps we currently have in certain ways, where we've been able to escalate more quickly than we should. And I think what that brings is a certain thought process is required. And I was reflecting just on the conversation about why our talent process is a game changer for us. If you look at the we call 5 dimensions: motivation, initiation, work style, calibration, and thought process. And I was reflecting on, what the guys were talking about. Goal orientation needs to be massive. You need to hit targets every hour, every day, relentlessly. Whereas, flexibility has probably been praised a lot in the past. But do we want people to be flexible, or do we want people to say, no, I want to solve this problem right now because I've got targets to hit? So then we start talking about problem resolution, anticipatory thinking. So I think it does become more difficult, but in a different way. So therefore, if you don't have people with that innate talent that's within their psyche to do that, that's actually when it becomes more of a drag than, because actually some people will really thrive in that environment. And I think that's the risk if we don't hire the right people ultimately.
Yeah, great. Good insight, Adam. And listening to Gary, Edwin, and Adam, Rob, what kind of comments does that evoke from you?
I echo everything the guys have said. I mean, for me, and the way we kind of tee it up at Western Approach, these individuals are running effectively a small business within a big business. So that they've effectively got to have the kahunas, if I can say that, to make these decisions, to own them, to stand by them, and live with it. And if they get it wrong, nobody's going to bang the table. We don't work like that at Western Approach. We'll learn from it. And I think that's the key thing for me. As long as we're learning every day, then we'll thrive as an organisation. That's the key takeaway for me. Running a business within a business. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah, and I love what you brought out, because we've not really mentioned that word throughout this podcast episode, which is being a learner. And constantly understanding that every day is a school day, right? You're going to encounter problems, you're going to try and solve them, and you're going to either find that it works or that it doesn't work, and you're going to learn from either situation. So I think that's a really great point that you bring out there, Rob. I really like that. So as we come towards the kind of end of our allocated time, I guess there's a couple of questions I've got left, and I'm going to stick with you, Rob, because the first one is, what have you seen happen in Western Approach throughout this process? What is it? A couple of years now we've been doing this in Western Approach. What have you seen? How would you describe the process and what it's meant to your site and to the people?
Yeah, so I think two and a half years. I think we've been at it, Western Approach, and it's definitely a game changer. We've seen some significant gains in terms of cultural improvements, just the way the organisation runs. I put my hand up, I can take a holiday now and be safe in the knowledge that the guys have got it. They know what they're doing, and if there are any problems, as the guys have already touched on, they'll solve it at team level. Our tier 3 meetings without kind of sending too big-headed, they're quite a breeze, because not a lot gets escalated. The guys deal with stuff at that ground level, And when things do get escalated, we know it's for the right reasons then. So I think we've seen a huge cultural shift for sure with the Western approach.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, that's you can't really say any better than that, can you, Rob? So that's really great to hear. Great advocacy for what it's done for Western approach. So I guess then the second question, and I'll kind of ask the other three guys to have a go at this each. Adam, what would be your advice to anyone who wants to make a breakthrough in this area to change the way that they set up their leadership in the site?
Well, I think understanding the why of why they need to change is super important. And we recognized our why. We want to become excellent in everything that we do. And we realized to get there, we need to do something different. And so I think understanding the why is the first one. It's not to deploy lean or something like that. It's to solve a problem. And our problem was I wouldn't say it was unique to us because it was our problem to solve. But, if we want to be excellent, we have to have the right people in the right roles. And the right people in the right roles doesn't just mean in the executive positions that make the decisions. As you talked about, Philip, the majority of our workforce work for group leaders and team leaders. And I think in the program that we had for our organizational design activity in our lean operating model deployment, we're talking about 800 people. It's a massive population. So I think if we get that right, we'll get great engagement, we'll get better results, and ultimately, we'll get a company that we want GKN Aerospace to be. So I would suggest, first understand the why, and secondly, just go for it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Adam. I think sage advice there. Edwin, same question to you.
I think one of the most important things to realize is it is not just about skills and experience. It is a lot to do with talent. And talent is not something that you can learn, but talent is something that you can assess, you can match to the role, and you'll be surprised how many people have different talents than they use today. So take a look internally. Take a look at who your talents are for being the next team leader. Think about the diversity that you can bring into your organization if you select different people than you had selected in the past because of the talent that they bring, and realize that these are your most important leaders. This is the largest group that can make the biggest impact directly on what you do day to day. So be proud. Be proud to say, hey, we want to change. We want to grow this to be the most important role in our organization. And for that, we're going to do something different. We're going to take a new approach that really makes a huge difference in what we expect team leaders to bring, but also what we can give them back in terms of their personal benefits and career.
Excellent. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Edwin. And then Gary, I'll give you the last word on this. What would your advice be?
So my advice would be quite simple. Is it's an opportunity to help change and drive the business from the very frontline level. We want to embrace and we want to promote an army of problem solvers, and it's an opportunity for someone to actually really drive that through. People that we want to bring up to a team leader level as an example will know all of the issues, will have experienced all the problems, and someone that really, I would encourage to say, look, well, you've lived it and breathed it. Why not move on to the next level and try and help resolve it? Yeah, because you really know what those problems are. And as much as we're trying to encourage the operators to bring out the improvements, we really need the best people to actually drive them to bring out the improvements. People that have been there and done it and experienced so much that really could bring us up to the next level in terms of the team leaders. And then equally, the team leader to the group leader. It's about the influence that you can have on this business. And that's how I would try and encourage people to try and make that breakthrough and become the team leaders and group leaders. Yes, it is tough, okay, but the rewards in terms of the development of the people, in terms of the ease in which we can now do things better, far outweigh the toughness of the job. And to be on the front line, sometimes it's absolutely the best place to be. Sometimes you kind of, you're wallowing your own self-pity, but you're actually the leaders of your own destiny. Yeah. And become leaders and lead yourself out of those problems. And that's what I would say in terms of how do we get people to make that breakthrough is you want to make a difference, you've got to get into those positions, and you can really make a difference. And what I would hope is that, I mentioned before about the framework and the freedom within that. We've got to be clear and concise what their framework and what their role and responsibility truly is, and give them that freedom then to do that role. If I can make a decision to do something, I shouldn't have to get it signed off by 5 other people. I should be able to just get it done. So yeah, that's where I would come from.
Excellent. I love that, Gary. Again, some really great advice there. So listen, we're at the end of our allotted time. I've really enjoyed it, as I always do, getting different perspectives on a really important subject. So thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy site director role to do this. Although from what you told us, you don't really have too much to do now. So that's it sounds like you have the time anyway.
Be careful who we broadcast this to, Philip, please.
Joking aside, though, Rob, thank you. I know how busy you are, so I appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
Adam, thank you very much for coming on. Edwin, as always, and Gary, you brought some great insight into this. I really appreciate it. So I hope that the listeners enjoyed this episode. Keep on the watch, because we'll have new episodes coming out at least once a month. And remember, it's about changing how you lead, not who you are.